Sam lived a quiet and simple life on his land. His house was not large, but it was surrounded by fields, tall trees, and open sky. Every morning he enjoyed walking outside with a cup of tea in his hand, listening to birds sing and feeling the calm breeze. He was not someone who liked noise or big crowds. The land gave him peace, and that was all he wanted. One bright morning, Sam went to check his mailbox as he always did. He expected to find nothing more than a few advertisements or maybe a letter from a friend. Instead, he saw a thick envelope with bold writing on it. The envelope came from something called the Homeowners Association of Green Hills. Sam frowned as he turned the envelope in his hand. He had never joined any group like that, so why would they write to him? Still, his curiosity grew, and he opened the envelope at once. Inside were many pages, neatly typed and marked with stamps. As Sam began to read, his calm morning quickly changed. The letter said that he was guilty of several violations of the community rules. The words were formal and heavy, saying that his fence was not the approved style, his shed was not painted in the right color, and even his garden was considered against the look of the neighborhood. At the bottom of the page, the letter stated clearly that he now owed $250,000 in fines. Sam blinked and read the number again. $250,000. The figure seemed so strange and unreal. He sat down on the porch chair and read the letter again, hoping he had misunderstood. But the message was the same. He had 30 days to pay or face legal action. At first, Sam could not stop himself from laughing softly. The whole idea seemed silly. He had lived on this land for years. Nobody from the neighborhood had ever told him what to do, and no one had mentioned that he was under such rules. His fence had been standing for a long time. His shed had always been green, and his garden had always been full of flowers. Nobody had cared before, so why now? But the longer he sat with the papers in his hand, the more curious he became. Was there some truth behind it? Was it possible that his property had somehow been pulled into this association without him knowing? Sam decided he would not ignore it. He would look for answers. That evening, after finishing his meal, Sam went to the small room where he kept all his documents. He opened the old wooden cabinet and pulled out thick folders filled with papers he had collected over the years. Some were dusty and old, but Sam was careful to keep everything safe. He placed the folders on the kitchen table, turned on a bright lamp, and began to read. Hours passed as Sam went through maps, contracts, and deeds. At first, he was only looking for proof that he was not part of the Homeowners Association, but as he studied the maps, something surprising appeared. The borders of his land were much larger than he remembered. The lines stretched beyond his house and garden. They crossed into the neighborhood itself. Roads, parks, and even houses were inside the borders marked on his deed. Sam leaned back in his chair and rubbed his chin. He checked again, running his finger along the map slowly. There was no mistake. According to the legal deed, he owned not just his own house, but a large area around it, including the very neighborhood that had sent him the fine. A slow smile spread across Sam's face. The letter had tried to scare him, but in reality, the truth was on his side. If these papers were correct, then the Homeowners Association had no power over him. In fact, they were the ones standing on his land. The thought was both amusing and powerful. Instead of fear, Sam now felt excitement. He wondered how the association would react when he showed them the truth. For years, they had acted like rulers of the neighborhood, giving orders and charging fees. But what if the ground they lived on was not even theirs? What if every road, every corner, and every house belonged to him by law? The night grew late, but Sam did not feel tired. He organized the papers neatly, making a small pile of the most important ones. He knew this was only the beginning. Tomorrow he would go to the county office to confirm everything. If his deed was valid, then the association was about to receive a surprise greater than any fine they had sent. Sam turned off the lamp and walked to his bedroom with a calm but determined look. He had always been a quiet man, but now he felt a sense of purpose. The situation had changed completely. What began as a threat against him had turned into an opportunity. And deep in his heart, Sam knew that the story of his land was far from over. The next morning, Sam woke up earlier than usual. He had barely slept during the night, but his mind was full of energy. He wanted answers, and he wanted them fast. After making a quick breakfast and pouring himself a cup of tea, he gathered the important papers from the night before and placed them neatly inside a brown folder. Today, he was going to the county office to confirm everything. The drive to the county office took nearly an hour. Sam rolled down his window and let the cool morning air brush across his face. He thought about the letter from the Homeowners Association, and then thought about the deed in his folder. One of them had to be wrong, and Sam had a strong feeling it was not the deed. When he arrived at the county building, Sam parked his truck and walked inside. The building was tall with wide glass doors and shiny floors that echoed with every step. At the front desk, a polite woman smiled at him. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you today?" she asked. "I need to check some property records," Sam replied, holding up his folder. "I believe there may be some confusion about my land." The woman guided him to an office down the hall. Inside, an older man with glasses sat at a large wooden desk surrounded by piles of books and maps. His nameplate read Mr. Lewis, County Recorder. "Please have a seat," Mr. Lewis said kindly. "What can I do for you?" Sam explained everything from the beginning. He told Mr. Lewis about the strange letter from the Homeowners Association, about the fines, and about how he had looked through his papers the night before. Finally, he placed the folder on the desk and slid it toward Mr. Lewis. The county recorder adjusted his glasses and began to examine the documents carefully. He opened maps, read through the deed, and even pulled out old records from his own shelves. For nearly an hour, Sam sat quietly as Mr. Lewis compared papers and made notes. At last the man looked up, his eyebrows raised in surprise. "Well, Mr. Sam," he said slowly, "I believe you are correct. According to these records, your land ownership is far larger than most people would expect. In fact, this deed confirms that you own not only your house but also the land on which much of Green Hills neighborhood is built." Sam smiled calmly, though inside he felt a rush of relief. "So the association is mistaken," he said. "Mistaken is a soft word," Mr. Lewis replied with a small chuckle. "The truth is, the Homeowners Association may not have the right to fine you at all. They may not even have the right to exist on this land without your permission." Sam leaned forward. "So everything they sent me, all the threats, none of it matters." "That appears to be the case," Mr. Lewis confirmed. "But I would advise you to speak with a lawyer before you make any big moves. Still, one thing is certain. This deed is clear and strong. The land is yours." Sam thanked Mr. Lewis and gathered his folder. As he walked out of the county office, he felt taller somehow, as if the weight of the letter had lifted off his shoulders. The fine of $250,000 no longer seemed like a threat. Instead, it looked like the association had placed themselves in a trap without even knowing it. On the way home, Sam thought about what to do next. He could simply ignore the association and let them find out the truth on their own. But part of him wanted to show them directly. They had tried to scare him, and now he had the chance to turn the tables in a calm but powerful way. When Sam reached home, he placed the folder back on his kitchen table. He made a fresh cup of tea and sat down to think. He imagined walking into the next neighborhood meeting, holding up his deed, and letting them see with their own eyes that the land was his. The thought made him smile again. That evening, as the sun went down, Sam wrote a short letter of his own. He addressed it to the president of the Homeowners Association. The words were simple. "I have received your notice. Before any further discussion, I suggest you review the county land records. You may find that the situation is not as you believe." Sam sealed the envelope and placed it in his mailbox for pickup. He knew this letter would start something new, something much bigger than a fine. The association thought they had control, but soon they would discover that the ground under their feet told a very different story. Sam sat on his porch, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. For years he had lived quietly, asking for nothing more than peace. Now, without seeking it, he found himself holding the key to an entire neighborhood. The question was not whether he owned it. The question was what he would do with that power. 2 days later, Sam received an invitation that made him smile. The Homeowners Association was holding their monthly meeting at the community hall. The letter invited all members of the neighborhood to attend. Sam knew they had sent it thinking he was under their rules. He looked at the envelope, then at his folder of land papers, and decided this was the perfect time to show the truth. On the evening of the meeting, Sam dressed neatly, placed the folder under his arm, and walked to the hall. The building was bright with lights and cars lined the street outside. Inside, rows of chairs were filled with people from the neighborhood. At the front, a long table held several board members, including a woman named Mrs. Green, who was the president of the association. She had a sharp voice and a strict look, the kind of person who loved rules and order. The meeting began with the usual announcements. Mrs. Green spoke about lawn care, parking regulations, and other community issues. Many people listened quietly, some nodding, some looking bored. Then, after nearly 30 minutes, Mrs. Green cleared her throat and held up a paper. "Now we must address a very serious matter," she said firmly. "One of our so-called members has refused to follow our rules. His violations are extreme and his fines have reached $250,000. We cannot allow this behavior to continue." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Sam remained calm in his seat, waiting for the right moment. Mrs. Green continued. "The property on the edge of the neighborhood, owned by a man named Sam, has been a constant problem. His fence, his shed, and his garden all break our standards. We have given him notice, and if he does not pay within 30 days, we will take further action." At that, Sam stood up slowly. All eyes turned toward him. He held the folder firmly in his hands as he walked to the front. "Excuse me, Mrs. Green," he said in a steady voice. "I believe we need to clear something today." Mrs. Green frowned. "This is not the time for discussion. You are in violation, and until you pay your fines, you have no voice here." Sam opened his folder and pulled out a large map. He placed it on the table for everyone to see. The map showed clear borders, lines stretching far beyond his house and into the very streets where the people in the hall lived. "This," Sam said, pointing to the map, "is my deed. I took it to the county office and they confirmed it. According to these records, the land you live on is mine. Every road, every park, and every lot falls inside my borders." The hall grew silent. People leaned forward trying to see the map. Whispers started spreading across the room. Mrs. Green's face turned pale. She picked up the map and looked at it closely, her lips tightening as she read the details. "This must be a mistake," she said quickly. "No one person can own all of this. We have run this association for years. We make the rules here." Sam stayed calm. "I thought the same at first. That is why I went to the county office. The county recorder confirmed everything. The land is mine by law. That means the association does not have the power to fine me. In fact, you may not have the right to fine anyone at all." The crowd broke into loud whispers again. Some looked shocked, while others seemed almost pleased. Many had grown tired of the strict rules and endless fees of the association. Now they were seeing a chance for change. One man in the back raised his hand. "If what he says is true, then the association has been charging us money without the right to do so." "We deserve to know the truth," another woman added. "Yes, we have paid fees for years. If the land belongs to Sam, then maybe the association has no authority over us." Mrs. Green tried to speak over the noise. "This is nonsense. We cannot just take his word." "We must verify this," Sam nodded. "I encourage you to do so. Go to the county office, look at the records, and see for yourselves. I'm not here to argue. I'm only here to share the truth." He closed his folder and looked around the hall. The people were no longer focused on Mrs. Green. Their eyes were on him, curious and thoughtful. Sam then said calmly, "I have no wish to cause trouble. I only want to live peacefully on my land, but if I own this neighborhood as the deed shows, then the rules must change. Not through fines and threats, but through respect and fairness." With that, he stepped away from the table and walked back to his seat. The room buzzed with voices, questions, and disbelief. For the first time, the authority of the association was shaken and everyone knew it. Sam sat quietly, his heart steady. He had spoken the truth and now the neighborhood would have to face it. The fine no longer mattered. What mattered now was what the community would do with this new knowledge. After the meeting ended, people walked out of the hall in small groups, whispering to one another. The usual chatter about lawns and fences was gone. Instead, the main subject was Sam and his surprising revelation. Some looked confused, others looked excited, and a few looked worried. The strong image of Mrs. Green at the front table now seemed weaker, her voice drowned by the weight of Sam's papers. Sam stepped outside into the cool evening air. He carried his folder under his arm and walked calmly back to his truck. He noticed how neighbors glanced at him as he passed. Some smiled, a few nodded politely, and others seemed unsure of what to say. For years, Sam had been just the quiet man who lived on the edge of the neighborhood. Now suddenly, he was at the center of every conversation. When he reached home, Sam sat on his porch with a cup of tea, watching the stars rise in the sky. He thought about what had happened. His intention had never been to control anyone. He only wanted to live in peace without being pushed around by an association he never agreed to. Yet now the truth had spread and the balance of power was shifting. The next morning, Sam's phone rang earlier than usual. It was his friend Paul, who lived a few streets away in the same neighborhood. "Sam," Paul said quickly, "everyone is talking about you. Some people are saying the association may have been wrong all along. Do you know how many of us have paid hundreds, even thousands of dollars in fees over the years? People are angry but also hopeful. If you really own the land, maybe this is the beginning of something new." Sam listened quietly, then replied, "I only know what the county records confirmed. I do not wish to cause harm, but I also cannot allow the association to fine me for living on my own land. If the truth helps others, then that is a good thing." Later that day, while Sam was tending to his garden, two neighbors walked up to his gate. One was Mrs. Carter, an older woman who often smiled but rarely spoke at meetings. The other was David, a younger man who had always been frustrated with the association's constant rules. "Sam," Mrs. Carter said kindly, "I just wanted to thank you. For years I have felt trapped by the association. They fined me for painting my shutters blue, even though it was the only color I liked. If what you said at the meeting is true, then maybe we can all live with more freedom." David added, "They fined me last year for leaving my car in the driveway overnight. Imagine paying money for something so small. If the association has no real authority, then we deserve to know and to live differently." Sam nodded and said, "I understand. I cannot promise what will happen next, but I know the truth is on record at the county office. Anyone can go and see for themselves. Change will come only if the community chooses it together." Word spread quickly in the following days. Groups of neighbors visited the county office, returning with confirmation that Sam's deed was indeed correct. They told others, and soon nearly everyone in Green Hills knew the association's power was built on shaky ground. Some were shocked, some were thrilled, and some worried about what it meant for the future. Meanwhile, Mrs. Green and the other board members tried to hold their ground. They sent out notices insisting that the rules still stood. But fewer people listened. Many homeowners began ignoring the fines and fees, saying they would wait until the truth was fully settled. The once strong authority of the association was fading, and it all began with Sam's quiet decision to open his folder of papers. One evening, Paul visited Sam again. He brought a pie his wife had baked as a small gift. As they sat on the porch sharing slices, Paul said, "You know, Sam, you may not realize it, but you've become a kind of leader here. People respect you because you stood up without anger, just with facts." "That is rare," Sam smiled softly. "I do not want to be a leader. I only wanted peace. But if my land can bring change for everyone, then I will accept whatever role I must play." That night, as Sam prepared for bed, he thought about how quickly life had shifted. Only a week ago, he was a quiet man enjoying his land. Now he was holding the key to the neighborhood's future. He did not know exactly where it would lead, but he felt calm knowing that honesty and truth were guiding the way. The next week brought more changes than Sam had expected. Every morning as he walked out to check his mailbox, he noticed neighbors slowing their cars to wave at him. Some stopped to talk, asking questions about the land and the deed. Others simply smiled with quiet respect. For years, Sam had been a background figure, but now he was a symbol of hope for many who felt tired of the association's endless rules. One afternoon, Sam received a formal letter, this time directly from the association board. The envelope was thinner than before, but the words inside carried a tone of urgency. "Dear Mr. Sam," the letter began, "the claims you presented at the recent meeting have caused confusion and unrest among residents. We demand that you provide official proof of your ownership within 5 days. Failure to do so will result in legal steps to protect the integrity of the association." Sam read the letter carefully, then placed it aside. He had no fear. The proof was already in his folder, and it had been confirmed by the county office. Still, he knew the association would not back down easily. Their power depended on the belief that they were in control, and now that belief was shaking. The following day, Sam decided to visit his lawyer, Mr. Turner, a calm man known for his clear thinking. Sam explained the situation, showed him the deed, and described the growing tension in the neighborhood. Mr. Turner studied the documents for a long while, then looked up. "Sam, your case is strong. The deed is clear, and the county's confirmation makes it even stronger. If the association pushes this into court, They will have little ground to stand on. However, you should prepare yourself. They may try to use pressure, not just legal action, to hold their position. Sam nodded. I only want peace, but I cannot allow them to claim authority that does not exist. That is fair, Mr. Turner said. Then I suggest you send them an official reply. Keep it simple, keep it firm, and let them know you are ready to defend your rights. That evening, Sam sat at his desk and wrote a letter with careful words. To the Homeowners Association, I have already confirmed with the county that my deed includes the land on which your neighborhood stands. I have no obligation to your rules or fines. I suggest you review the public records for yourselves before taking further steps. Respectfully, Sam. He sealed the letter and mailed it the next morning. While waiting for their reply, Sam noticed another change in the neighborhood. People began to visit his home more often, bringing small gifts like bread, fruits, or even plants for his garden. They wanted to show their support and gratitude. One evening, a group of families gathered in his yard asking if they could speak with him. A young mother named Lisa spoke for the group. Sam, many of us feel trapped by the association. We pay fees every month, but we see little benefit. They fine us for the smallest things, like the color of curtains or the type of flowers we plant. If what you say is true, then maybe we do not need them at all. Maybe we can live together as neighbors without being controlled. Sam listened carefully before replying. I never wanted to control anyone. My only wish is to live peacefully on my land. If the truth of my deed gives you freedom, then use it wisely. Communities do not need heavy rules to live in harmony. They need respect and understanding. The people nodded, encouraged by his words. That night as they left, Sam felt a quiet strength inside him. He realized this was no longer just about him. It was about the entire neighborhood, about people reclaiming their right to live without unnecessary chains. 2 days later, another letter from the association arrived. This time it was shorter, and the tone had shifted. Dear Mr. Sam, we acknowledge that there may be a need to review county records. Until further notice, we will pause any actions regarding your property. We request a meeting with you to discuss possible resolutions. Sam read the letter twice, then placed it back in the envelope. The strong tone of power was gone. In its place was hesitation, even fear. The turning point had arrived. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sam stood on his porch and looked out across the neighborhood. Lights were glowing in every house. Families were gathering for dinner, and children were playing in the yards. For the first time, he felt that change was not only possible, it was already happening. The association had been forced to pause, and the people were finding their voice. Sam knew the road ahead would not be easy, but he also knew that the balance of power had shifted forever. The letter from the association asking for a meeting spread quickly through the neighborhood. People whispered about it on sidewalks at the park, and even in the small grocery store nearby. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. For years, the board had spoken with authority, but now their voices trembled. Sam, however, stayed calm. He read the letter again and again, but he did not rush to reply. He knew they were trying to regain control, but the truth was already stronger than their words. He decided to take his time and think carefully before giving them an answer. That week, Sam continued his normal life. He tended to his garden, fixed a loose board on his porch, and took long walks across the fields. Neighbors stopped to talk with him, asking for updates. Many of them felt lighter, as if the heavy burden of rules and fines had started to lift. One afternoon, Paul came to visit again. He brought a stack of papers he had collected from other residents. Sam, Paul said, placing the papers on the table. These are stories from people who have been fined unfairly over the years. Some of them paid hundreds for things as simple as leaving a trash bin outside for a day. Others were forced to repaint their homes because the board didn't like the color. People are tired. They see you as the reason hope is returning. Sam looked through the papers, reading story after story. He felt a growing sense of responsibility. He had not asked for this role, but it was clear the community now looked to him for guidance. Later that evening, Sam sat on his porch, thinking about the upcoming meeting. He realized the association was not just fighting for authority. They were fighting for survival. Without their power to fine and control, they had little reason to exist. The thought gave him clarity. The next morning, Sam wrote a simple reply. To the Board of the Homeowners Association, I am willing to meet, but only if the discussion is open to all residents. This matter concerns the entire community, not just myself. The meeting should be public and every homeowner must have the right to speak. Respectfully, Sam, he mailed the letter and waited. Within a few days, an announcement arrived. A special meeting would be held at the community hall, open to every resident. The evening of the meeting arrived quickly. The hall was more crowded than ever before. Families filled every chair and many people stood along the walls. The air buzzed with quiet excitement. Sam sat near the front, his folder of papers beside him. At the long table, Mrs. Green and the other board members looked tense. Their usual confident expressions were replaced by stiff smiles. Mrs. Green began the meeting with a shaky voice. "Thank you all for coming. We are here to address the concerns raised about property ownership and association authority. We will begin by hearing from Mr. Sam." Sam stood slowly and walked to the center of the room. He placed his folder on the table and opened it. Holding up the deed, he spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "This is my property deed. It was confirmed at the county office. According to this document, I own not only my house but also the land on which this neighborhood is built. That means the association does not have authority over me, and perhaps not over any of you. I did not come here to cause trouble. I only came to live in peace. But when I received a letter demanding $250,000, I was forced to look deeper. What I found was the truth, and that truth belongs to all of us." The crowd erupted in whispers and nods. Many clapped softly, showing their support. Mrs. Green tried to speak, but her voice faltered. "Even if the land belongs to you, the association has organized this neighborhood for years. We maintain order, we provide structure, A man in the crowd interrupted. "You provide fines and fees, not support. We pay, but what do we get in return?" Another voice added. "You fined me for planting roses in my front yard. How does that help the neighborhood?" The room filled with voices of frustration, years of hidden complaints now pouring out. The board members exchanged nervous glances. Their control was slipping faster than they could stop it. Sam raised his hand and the room grew quiet again. "I am not asking to replace the association with myself. I'm asking for fairness. If this community is to have rules, they must come from the people who live here, not from a few at the top. If we choose together, then we can all feel free and respected." The crowd cheered louder this time. For the first time, the power truly rested with the people, not with the board. Mrs. Green sank back into her chair, her face pale. She knew the truth as well as everyone else. The association's days of control were numbered. Sam closed his folder and stepped back. He had spoken his part. The future of the neighborhood was now in the hands of its people. The following weeks were full of change for the Green Hills neighborhood. Sam had expected some tension after the meeting, but the response from the community surprised him. Neighbors began speaking openly about the association's rules and fees, sharing stories of unfair fines and unnecessary restrictions. The conversation was no longer about fear or compliance. It was about fairness, respect, and living together in a community that valued freedom. Sam spent most mornings walking around the neighborhood, greeting people and listening to their experiences. Many homeowners approached him with questions about their rights in the deed. Others simply came to thank him for speaking the truth so calmly and firmly. Sam realized that leadership was not about authority, but about helping people understand their own power. One sunny morning, Sam walked to the community park. Families were setting up small picnic areas. Children were playing on the swings and neighbors were chatting freely. He noticed Mrs. Carter arranging flowers in a small garden she had planted near the walking path. She waved at him and he smiled back. The garden looked beautiful, full of colors that would have once been questioned by the association. As Sam strolled further, he ran into David, the young man who had once complained about fines for leaving his car in the driveway. David smiled broadly and said, "Sam, things are really changing. People are talking about forming a new council, one where everyone can have a voice. The old rules are losing their power fast." "That sounds good," Sam replied. "A community works best when everyone has a say. Rules can guide, but they should never control. Respect and understanding are far more important than fines or threats." Meanwhile, the former board members of the association were struggling to maintain their influence. Mrs. Green had called several meetings behind closed doors, trying to find a way to restore her authority. But the homeowners had little patience for secretive decisions. The trust that once existed between the board and the residents was gone, replaced by a desire for fairness and openness. One evening, Sam received an invitation from a group of neighbors. They wanted to discuss forming a new community council that would represent everyone equally. Sam accepted the invitation and joined them at a small house at the end of Maple Street. Around the table, he saw familiar faces, families he had spoken with at the county office, friends like Paul, and even some residents who had been quiet during the meetings but were now eager to participate. "Sam," said Lisa, the young mother, "we want to thank you again. Your courage gave us the strength to speak up. We want to create a council where every family can have a voice, where rules are fair and the community is supported, not controlled." Sam smiled and said, "I never wanted control. I only wanted peace. But if my deed can help everyone find freedom and fairness, then I am glad to be part of it. The most important thing is that decisions come from the people, not from fear." The neighbors discussed how to organize the council. They agreed that each street would have a representative, and that meetings would be held openly, allowing everyone to contribute ideas. The focus would be on improving the neighborhood, organizing events, and helping each other rather than enforcing strict rules. As the night ended, Sam walked home under the quiet glow of streetlights. He felt a sense of calm he had never known before. The tension that once weighed on the neighborhood was gone, replaced by a spirit of cooperation and understanding. People were beginning to take control of their own lives, guided by fairness rather than fear. Over the next few days, changes became visible. Families painted their homes in colors they liked, planted new gardens, and organized small social events in the park. Children laughed freely in the streets without worrying about fines, and neighbors helped one another with small projects and chores. The sense of community grew stronger than it had ever been before. Sam stood on his porch one evening, watching the neighborhood come alive with light, laughter, and movement. The deed had been the key to revealing the truth, but it was the people who had embraced change that truly transformed the neighborhood. Sam smiled to himself. The journey had not been easy, but it had led to something much greater than fines or rules. It had led to freedom, respect, and a real sense of community. The future of Green Hills was no longer dictated by authority, but shaped by the voices of its residents, guided by honesty and fairness. And Sam, once a quiet man on the edge of the neighborhood, had helped light the path to a brighter and more peaceful life for everyone. The weeks following the formation of the new community council were filled with activity. Sam watched proudly as neighbors came together to discuss improvements, events, and projects. The air was lighter, and the streets of Green Hills were alive with laughter and conversation. The oppressive rules and fines of the old association were now a memory, replaced by cooperation and mutual respect. Each week, the council held open meetings. Every family had the chance to speak, share ideas, and vote on decisions. There were discussions about planting more trees, organizing neighborhood cleanups, and creating a small library in the park. Sam noticed that the children ran freely without fear, playing games and riding bicycles through the streets. The community that once lived under rules and restrictions now moved with energy, kindness, and creativity. One afternoon, Sam received a visit from Mrs. Carter and her grandson, Max. They brought a small wooden bench that Max had built with his father's help. "Sam," Mrs. Carter said, smiling warmly, "we wanted to place this bench in the park to show our thanks. It is a reminder that the neighborhood is stronger when people work together." Sam accepted the gift humbly. "Thank you. It is not just for me. It is for everyone. This bench will remind people that kindness and cooperation make a community stronger than rules ever could." Meanwhile, some former members of the old association tried to maintain their influence, but their authority was gone. Residents no longer followed their instructions blindly, and the council encouraged transparency in every decision. Even Mrs. Green eventually attended a council meeting, listening quietly and learning that leadership was not about control, but about helping others and earning their respect. Sam spent his days continuing the simple life he loved. He worked in his garden, walked along the fields, and enjoyed the peace that had always been his goal. Yet now he felt a deep connection to the neighborhood. He had never sought power, but the events of the past weeks had shown him that honesty, patience, and courage could create meaningful change. One evening, Paul came to visit. They sat on Sam's porch drinking tea and watching the sun set over the horizon. "Sam," Paul said, "I still cannot believe how quickly everything changed. You didn't act with anger or force. You just stood for the truth, and it changed the whole neighborhood. People are happier now and they feel free. Sam nodded. I did not do this alone. The people of this neighborhood wanted change too. They just needed to see the truth and be reminded of their own voice. I only helped them see it. As the sky turned pink and orange, Sam looked across the fields that bordered his home. The gentle breeze carried the sounds of neighbors talking, children laughing, and dogs barking happily. It was a peaceful harmony that he had always dreamed of. Over the next months, Green Hills transformed completely. Gardens bloomed with bright colors, streets were clean and safe, and neighbors helped one another without expecting anything in return. The council introduced small festivals and game nights in the park, encouraging community spirit. People no longer feared fines or rules, but instead focused on cooperation, respect, and enjoyment of life. Sam often walked through the neighborhood, quietly observing the happiness around him. He noticed small gestures, a neighbor helping another carry groceries, children reading together on the park bench, a family painting their house in a favorite color. Each moment reminded him that the true strength of a community was not authority, but kindness, honesty, and understanding. One evening, as Sam sat on his porch with the warm glow of lanterns around him, he thought about how everything had begun with a simple letter and a deed. The situation could have been frightening, but it had become an opportunity for growth, freedom, and connection. Sam smiled, knowing that the neighborhood had found its true heart. The Green Hills neighborhood was no longer controlled by rules or fear. It was alive with laughter, respect, and friendship. And Sam, the quiet man who had once only wanted peace, had helped guide the neighborhood toward a future full of hope and harmony. As the stars shone above, Sam closed his eyes and felt a sense of calm he had never felt before. The land was peaceful, the people were happy, and the story of Green Hills had reached a joyful and lasting ending.